the same role when you're combining your other compounds. So even though hydrogen is happy here because it's just tied to itself, when you try and tie it to someone else, you may have to do it in multiples to conserve charge. Okay? Are those a little bit better on those single displacements?
Yeah.
So the cases in which you won't have reactions for single displacements, if you don't have a more active metal, if it does not rank higher, no reaction. The cases in which you won't have reactions for double displacements, if there's not a solid formed, no reaction. And then all other cases, you'll have some type of solid formed, you just have to figure out what that's going to be. Okay? What else? More like what we've done, some other stuff. Oh, okay.
Okay, number 5.
Yep.
Unless she wants to do
Number 5, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can actually get this all on one. Don't think I can. Let's see if I can do it. Does everyone have your study pack here? Does everyone have their study pack? Okay. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at that reaction, this sequential reaction here, and then we're also going to be looking at number 7. So I'm going to write down the questions that it's asking us from, number 5, and then I'm going to go back to the table. So for number 5, what it's asking us is if you had 2.83 grams of your ammonia formed, how many grams of CO2 were also formed? So we're wanting to know grams of CO2. We were given grams of ammonia, so that's where we're going to be starting for this one. So you don't see 3 here. What you really see is 5. And we do the work there for it. Okay, so you're starting off with 2.83 grams of ammonia. So you're starting off where? In the reactions. Where's the only place that there's ammonia?
The very last one.
The very last one at the very bottom. That's where we're starting. Now we're looking for CO2 production going up. So where is a place that we produce CO2? Second one. We produce some CO2 there. And the first. So you've got 2 separate reactions you've got to do for this one. I'm going to do one of them here and one of them over here. I'll do the longer one over here and the shorter one here. So before we start going through this, anytime you get a sequential, you want to find your intermediates. So if this is a stopping point, and if that is a stopping point, how do I get from my bottom equation to the second equation? What's my intermediate there? The hydrogen. This is your ferry point from equation 2 to 3. What's your ferry point from 2 to 1?
Water.
The water. Okay. So for this first one, we're only going to the second level. But for that second reaction, you're going from third to second, all the way back up to the first. Okay, so for your first one, you're starting with 2.83 grams of your ammonia. What's your molar mass for ammonia? Someone do that for me, or give that to me.
17.
Point.
43056.
So that's your grams of ammonia that you start out with, and that gets you into moles of ammonia. Okay, so that puts us here. So what is the coefficient for the moles of ammonia there? 2. So 2 moles of ammonia, and we're not wanting to go to nitrogen, we're wanting to go to our ferry point here. So what's our coefficient for our hydrogen? 3. So when you hit here, it's going to take you up to this next level where you want to go. excuse me, but we're still in hydrogen. So what's our coefficient for hydrogen there? 4. And then we're really stopping in what we're interested in, which is our carbon dioxide. What's the coefficient for that? 1. And then will someone do the molar mass for carbon dioxide? It should be really close to 44.
44. .0098.
So when you go through and multiply this, you're going to get an initial production of CO2. Okay, and that initial production is going to correspond to that first gram production on number 5. I can't scroll down to it because it's going to mess this up, but it's 1.7? 2.74. Okay, so that's your first production of CO2. But you can also have a second product of CO2 in this first level. So starting up from the bottom now, we've got to go from the bottom level to the second level, all the way back up to the third level. We'll do it on this right side since it's a little bit longer problem. So starting with the same mass, using the same molar mass for ammonia, even all the way up to the point of going to the same area, right? We're still wanting to ferry through hydrogen, but instead of going from hydrogen to CO2, we want to jump from hydrogen over to water. So I'm going to get us caught up to that point. So at this point right here, we've jumped to our intermediate on that second level, which is our hydrogen. But now we need to move to the intermediate that's going to take us from the second equation to the first equation. So what is that? Water, right? So hydrogen's coefficient is 4. What's the coefficient for your water in that second equation? 2. And what's the coefficient for your water in the first equation?
2.
In the first.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. And then, so water is your intermediate, but what you're really interested in is the CO2. So you want to jump from your water to your CO2, so your coefficient for your CO2 is 3. And then your last portion of this is going to be the same as your last portion of that, which is molar mass. So get us in grams. And then that's the one that's going to produce a little bit more CO2 for us.
5.16.
5.16?
5.60.
5.60. So together, you're going to take your 5.60 grams and your 2.74 grams. And you're going to get a total production of CO2.
We have 0.34.
Okay. Did you say 8.34?
Yeah. Just like a mistake, I think.
Yeah, so what he used here is he's used a little bit different periodic table than what we had. So if your molar masses are a little bit different on this, you're going to get a little bit different answer than he did. So he may have used an old periodic table that didn't have as many sig figs as ours did. If he can see your work, the answer is perfectly correct. Okay. If you do all this and don't show any work, though, it's going to be wrong. But showing your work, your answer is correct. Yep. Is that one a little bit better? That one's a little bit harder because you had 3 levels to go through, and you actually had 2 products of CO2 that is possible in making. What else? We got like 3 minutes, 4 minutes. What else? Another question? Let's look through here and see what we all get into today. Do y'all have any problems with any combustions or balancing the combustions? Y'all have any problems with that? No? Sometimes those can be a little bit hinky when you gotta go through like the half reactions of the oxygen and double it. So did y'all get into any dissociations?
No.
That's gonna be the case. You get strong acids and strong bases. They're really fun to play. Your car battery has a strong acid in it. That's why it's work. That's why it works and produces energy. Okay. All right. I'll see you on Wednesday.
Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah, you're
Mark.
welcome. If you came in and you were here for the SI session, just make sure you at some point signed in on the iPad. And then if you forgot, just tell me the time. Sign in now and then tell me the time it was supposed to sign you in at, and I'll fix it in the electronic.